For more than 2 decades, Judge Judy Scheinland's courtroom had been a stage for nearly every form of human conflict imaginable. She had presided over countless bitter disputes, dishonest landlords, manipulative tenants, shattered marriages, and financial betrayal in every form. Through it all, her reputation remained untouchable. She was known for her razor-sharp intellect, brutal honesty, and unwavering composure. No matter how tragic the story or outrageous the deception, Judge Judy never cried. Until James Mitchell entered her courtroom, at 67 years old, James stood at the defendant's podium, wearing a faded military jacket that had clearly seen better days. Though worn and weathered, the purple heart pin fastened to his collar still reflected a quiet dignity. His trembling hands clutched the wooden rail, and his exhausted face carried the unmistakable marks of hardship, grief, and years spent surviving rather than living. Across from him sat Patricia Brennan, an impeccably dressed property owner in an expensive designer suit, radiating confidence. She had come prepared with photographs, legal documents, police reports, and invoices. Everything seemingly necessary to prove that James Mitchell was nothing more than a destructive tenant who had failed to pay rent, damaged her property, and refused to leave. Her suit sought $8,500 in unpaid rent, damages, and violations. On paper, it looked straightforward. But Judge Judy immediately sensed something wasn't right. Patricia presented her case with cold professionalism. She described James as a problematic tenant who had turned her apartment into a disaster zone. Holes in walls, broken fixtures, repeated lease violations, police involvement. She painted herself as a reasonable businesswoman, simply trying to protect her investment. Then came the photographs. The apartment was undeniably damaged. Judge Judy turned her attention to James and asked for his response. For a long moment he said nothing. Then, with trembling fingers, James reached into his jacket pocket and carefully removed an old folded letter. It was visibly worn, stained from years of being handled, opened, and reread. His voice cracked as he spoke. "Your Honor, this is from my daughter. She wrote it before she died." The courtroom fell silent. Judge Judy accepted the letter and began reading. As her eyes moved across the page, her expression changed in a way no one had ever seen before. Her usual stern demeanor softened. Her jaw tightened. Her eyes lingered on each line as if absorbing something profoundly painful. When she finally looked up, the atmosphere in the room had shifted entirely. The letter revealed that James's daughter, Sarah Mitchell, had been an Army medic and fellow veteran who had also rented from Patricia Brennan. Sarah had been battling terminal cancer, and while she was dying, Patricia Brennan had evicted her. Sarah had fallen behind on rent because her life-saving treatments were financially devastating. Despite knowing Sarah's condition, Patricia pursued eviction proceedings and allegedly visited Sarah while she was hospitalized to demand payment for damages. 2 months later, Sarah died homeless. As Judge Judy read Sarah's words aloud, the courtroom was overcome with shock. Sarah's final letter to her father was not merely a goodbye. It was a warning. She wrote that Patricia specifically preyed on vulnerable veterans, believing they were too broken, too traumatized, or too powerless to fight back. Sarah begged her father not to let Patricia continue harming others. For the first time in her television career, Judge Judy was visibly emotional. She called for a recess, but during that break, her research team uncovered something far more disturbing. Patricia Brennan's so-called veteran-friendly housing business appeared to be built on systematic exploitation. Patriot Gardens Apartments marketed itself as affordable housing for veterans and military families, draped in patriotic imagery and promises of support. But public records showed a chilling pattern. Over 3 years, Patricia had filed 23 eviction cases, specifically targeting veteran tenants. Nearly every veteran tenant evicted had lived there between 8 and 11 months. Nearly all were accused of suspiciously inflated property damage, and in nearly every case, those damage claims led to collections, destroyed credit, and homelessness. Judge Judy discovered that Patricia's brother owned the contracting company responsible for the repair invoices. Those invoices were grossly inflated, often charging thousands for repairs worth only hundreds. Together, Patricia and her brother had created a predatory system: attract struggling veterans with affordable housing, wait until they were financially vulnerable. Fabricate or exaggerate damages. Evict them. Collect inflated repair fees. Repeat, James Mitchell had unknowingly become the latest victim. Even worse, Patricia had knowingly rented to James after evicting his daughter, using false compassion to lure him into the same trap. She had recognized his vulnerability and targeted him deliberately. As more evidence surfaced, other veterans in the courtroom began speaking out. One after another, former tenants described nearly identical experiences: fraudulent charges, manipulated leases, and homelessness. Judge Judy's courtroom had transformed from a simple civil dispute into the public unraveling of a large-scale fraud operation. When proceedings resumed, Judge Judy delivered one of the most powerful rulings of her career. She declared Patricia Brennan's claims entirely fraudulent. James Mitchell owed her nothing. Instead, Patricia was ordered to pay James $48,500 in damages for fraud, emotional distress, and punitive penalties. But Judge Judy went further. She vacated James's eviction record. She ordered a full forensic audit of Patricia's business. She demanded records of every veteran tenant she had evicted. And she referred the case directly to the state attorney general for criminal prosecution. Patricia Brennan's business license was suspended immediately. State investigators launched a full-scale criminal investigation. Over the following months, that investigation revealed the staggering extent of the scheme. What began with 23 known victims expanded to 29 veteran families. Financial audits uncovered over $623,000 in fraudulent damage claims. Tests between Patricia and her brother exposed deliberate targeting of disabled and medically vulnerable veterans. Eventually, Patricia Brennan was convicted on multiple criminal charges, including fraud, elder abuse, conspiracy, and theft by deception. She was sentenced to 8 years in federal prison. Her brother received 5, their properties were liquidated, their fraudulent empire collapsed. But for James Mitchell, justice was never truly about revenge. It was about honoring Sarah. With support from fellow veterans, housing advocates, and VA programs, James rebuilt his life. He secured stable housing, recovered overdue veteran benefits, and transformed his daughter's final words into a movement. Sarah's letter became the foundation for the Sarah Mitchell Veteran Housing Protection Fund, which went on to help dozens of veterans fight predatory housing practices. New tenant protection laws were passed, veterans found legal support, and Patriot Gardens was transformed into legitimate affordable housing, renamed in Sarah's honor. Judge Judy herself later described Sarah's letter as one of the most powerful pieces of truth she had ever encountered. A dying daughter had left behind not just a warning, but a weapon against injustice. James still carries Sarah's letter with him every day, not as a symbol of loss, but as proof that courage, even in the face of death, can expose evil, protect the vulnerable, and change lives. Sarah Mitchell's final act was not surrender. It was justice. And because one grieving father found the courage to let the world hear her truth, countless others were saved.